Hello ladies and gents, I'm the Beanie 101 and I'm here with another Mass Effect Andromeda Multiplayer class guide video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Vanguard class. Now that patch 1.06 has dropped and there's been a huge increase in the damage caused by powers and by combos, as well as by shotguns and a number of other weapons in the game, we are going to look at the Vanguard class again and make them a lot of fun. As always, if you find this video useful, please hit the like button. It helps other people find my content. And if you do want to see any of my other class guide videos for the multiplayer content in Mass Effect Andromeda, they're all in the description. So we're going to get started with the charge skill. We've got our usual recharge speed and damage and force at levels 2 and 3. At level 4 you have a choice. You have plus 40 damage and 35 force, or increasing the radius of effect of your charge by 3.5 meters. I tend to go to area of effect, mainly because it means that I can detonate more combos. It's not necessarily going to be the enemy that I'm specifically charging that is going to be detonated, but anybody else around them that is primed for detonation is also going to explode with biotic goodness. You could take the damage and force if you want to do slightly more single target damage, but I'm really going for maximising combo potential here, so I go for radius. At rank 5, this is a different choice in our most recent build for the Vanguards, where you focus very much on melee damage. Here we're going for a power synergy, which means that all of your powers are going to get a buff of 25% damage and force 5 seconds after you've utilised your charge. Now when you look at the rest of the build, you will see that we've really focused on making sure that we've got a lot of uptime on our powers and we're using them much more regularly, so getting an extra bit of damage out of them 5 seconds after charging is pretty good. Usually you're going to have at least one of your skills that is off cooldown after charging to be able to take benefit of this bonus. At rank 6, the general consensus is that Bastion is still a fantastic skill for anybody utilising charge. It increases your damage resistance for 5 seconds, gives you 75 damage resistance, which is pretty damn good, but it also restores an extra 50% of your shields, which if you add on to the fact that the initial charge also restores 50% of your shields, it means that every single time you charge, you're getting your shields back. The plus 40% damage is also very nice, but this skill really helps your survivability, and it means you're less likely to die because you're able to top your shields off every few seconds. As long as you're focusing on who to charge next and you're not charging into a huge amount of danger, then you're going to have plenty of survivability, and you're going to have a difficult time actually dying, to be perfectly honest. You also have an option of Shock Trooper, which greatly reduces your recharge speed, really, yeah, you could have some use for this, but I think that Bastion is the overwhelmingly better pick here. Moving on to Nova, you have radius and damage and force multipliers that you get for rank 2 and rank 3. For rank 4 you have the same choice that you had for charge. You have a choice between damage and force, or increasing the radius of damage of the Nova. Now Nova is already a decent area of effect skill. It affects 4 meters, so if you're charging and then using Nova amongst a cluster of enemies, you're going to hit everybody anyway. So the extra 40% radius, yeah, okay, fine, you might pick up the odd 1 or 2 enemies extra every now and again, but actually I prefer to increase the damage and force of my Nova, because that is going to be something that impacts everybody that I hit with the Nova skill. At rank 5, again, it's a bit of a toss-up as to whether you want to take extra shield damage or extra armor damage. I tend to go to armor, mainly because a lot of the tougher to kill enemies in the game, things like Hydras and the like, they all have armor rather than necessarily shields. Some of them have both, but I find that armor is something that you're more likely to want to whittle down, so I pick anti-armor. Choice is yours. Really is up to you how you decide to take rank 5. At rank 6, we have the option of shield powered, which means that you have no cooldown on your Nova, but it is going to cost you 100% of your shields. That can be reduced somewhat with some of your passives, but giving up all of your shields to use Nova whenever you want, it's a huge risk-reward skill. So if you are skillful at playing the Vanguard and you know exactly when and how you want to use the Nova skill, then shield powered is certainly an option. However, I like my shields, especially on silver and gold, where you can get overwhelmed and can have a large number of enemies around you. I don't want to purposefully remove my shields. However, you could use this skill and follow up with a charge to get your shields back up straight away anyway. Entirely up to you how you use it, but my preference is Seismic Nova. It increases the damage overall of Nova by 40%, but the most important thing is that it primes enemies for combo detonations. Now, it does knock enemies to the ground, and it does only affect unshielded, unarmored enemies, so only red barred enemies are going to be primed by this, but it is a pretty good skill to make sure that you've got more uptime and more possibility for combos. So we like Seismic Nova. Shockwave is a skill that I have been playing around with for some time, trying to get the best usage out of. You have a choice, you have recharge speed and damage and force at ranks 2 and 3, and the same choice between charge and Nova, a choice between damage and force and radius at rank 4. The radius increases the width of your Shockwave. Now, if you're relatively new to the game and you're having difficulty maybe aiming your Shockwave, then radius can be useful to capture a number of other enemies in there, but I tend to be able to aim Shockwave okay, so I go for the extra damage and force because that is nice, more damage. At rank 5, we have a choice of recharge speed, plus 35% is nothing to turn your nose up to, and you also have the option to increase the reach of your Shockwave, and that increases the maximum distance by 50%. Now, there are some classes that utilize the Shockwave skill, I'm thinking the Human Adepts maybe, that would benefit more from reach because you're not necessarily going to be as up close and personal to enemies, but you're a Vanguard. You're charging right into the face of enemies. So reach, to be perfectly honest, doesn't really serve too much of a purpose, and I'd rather have the recharge speed to be able to use Shockwave as a detonator on a much more regular basis. At rank 6, you have a choice between anti-armor, or you have the ability to turn Shockwave into a priming ability, and it briefly lifts enemies up into the air and suspends them, and it means that they are now open to combo detonations, which means that you can follow up with a charge, and you will do very nicely with the additional combo damage. I like lifting Shockwave. Shockwave, if I remember rightly, I think it pretty much primes everything. It doesn't necessarily suspend everybody in mid-air, but it is one of those skills that you can use on a regular basis to just eke out more priming and more detonating of your combos. Apex training we pretty much leave behind. The reason why we leave it behind is as a result of the 1.06 patch, whereby rank 3 and rank 6, which used to give you a cooldown to your recharge speed, in rank 6 circumstance a 20% reduction, and in rank 3 circumstance a 10% reduction, it now reduces your weapon weight capacity. Now, by not taking Apex training, you are losing 15, 20, 35, about 50% extra power damage. So, yeah, that can be mitigated elsewhere, but I find that Barrier is by far the more important passive to be taking for your Vanguard to really increase your survivability and make sure that you're not whittling down your shields too regularly. So you have an increase to your barrier regeneration and your melee damage at ranks 2 and 3. At rank 4 we have a choice between flat out extra shields or recuperative barrier, which means that the amount of delay on shield regeneration and health regeneration is increased, it's improved somewhat. I tend to go for just the flat out extra shields. I'm able to top up my shields on demand as a Vanguard as long as I have my charge skill available to me. Plus, I can top up using my rank 5 skill, Barrier Drain, so I don't really need the regeneration to kick in. I can self regen my shields in a lot of circumstances, so for that reason I just want more shields. At rank 5 you've got Biotic, Alacrity, I think that's how you say it, or Barrier Drain. The top skill will give you improves your weapon weight and improves the speed of your character whilst your shields are active, and it also gives you a 10% biotic shield cost reduction if you are using something like shield powered Nova. Then that means you're not going to lose 100% of your shields, you are going to have 10% left, which may not seem enough, but actually what that means is that you can Nova twice before you lose all of your shields and you lose the ability to Nova with your shields. I quite like to use Barrier Drain. It was a great skill before the patch. It's been nerfed a little bit. The amount of shields that you can restore by melee has been reduced from 20% to 15%, but it's still something that I can use on demand to top my shields up, so I quite like it. The extra 50% melee damage is also pretty good. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I punch things to get my shields back, and because it's giving me extra damage, I want to punch stuff more. At rank 6, saving barrier is certainly pre-patch was by far the better choice here, which means that if you hit low health, if you hit under 20% health, you automatically restore 100% of your shields, increasing your ability to survive massively. It now has a cooldown of 15 seconds rather than 10 seconds, so you're not going to proc this anywhere near as regularly as you once did. However, it is still fantastic. Active barrier does catch up a little bit now, and that restores 10% of your shields on a biotic kill. The reason why this is much better is mainly because of the buffs that you've seen to powers and to combos. You are going to be getting far more kills as a result of biotic abilities than you were pre-patch. So the extra 10% shields that you get, plus it helps out your allies and tops their shields up as long as they're within 6 meters of you, you will get much more use out of active barrier in patch 1.06. I still have a massive preference to saving barrier, because I can't guarantee that I'm going to necessarily get a biotic kill. Saving barrier is usually when I'm in real trouble. The only reason you're going to have your shields whittled down a tremendous amount and you're going to get down to low health is usually when you've charged into too many enemies, or you're surrounded by a load of bloody observers with their 100% accuracy death beams. So saving barrier will still save your life on a regular basis in almost every game that you play. And that is the build. That is how we utilize our skills. In terms of weapons, I'm currently using a Disciple, but with the buffs that shotguns have received, you could equally use the Hesh. That's very, very good right now, purely because of its rate of fire. Very, very strong shotgun. The Scattershot is also quite good because it has unlimited ammo. And I also like the Rusad. The Rusad now does huge amounts of damage, and when you're up close, it's very, very difficult to miss. So you're going to do, your damage output is going to be pretty good if you're rocking a Rusad. Bear in mind that with the current setup, because you're not taking some of the weapon capacity skills, equipping a Rusad is going to increase your recharge time by 10%. So I've only got it at rank 3. At rank 10, I should be at a point where the weight should be reduced enough that it's not going to affect my recharge speed, but for the time being, I like using the Disciple. If you don't want to use a shotgun, then there are a couple of pistols which you could also use. The Talon is a borderline shotgun anyway, and it's a bit lighter than some of the heaviest shotguns in the shotgun class. or you could use something like the Hornet, which has a huge rate of fire and is superbly accurate and does a fair amount of damage now that it has been buffed significantly in the patch. A honourable mention to a gun that I don't have yet, and that's the Darn shotgun. That gives you increased damage for headshots, for critical hits. So if you do have a Darn, then that is definitely something that you want to equip on this class as well. With regards to equipment, I mean, I don't have a secondary weapon because you're honestly not going to be using your shotgun that much anyway. You're going to be relying on your biotics and quite a lot of punching as well. And for that reason, I like using the Juggernaut shield. And the reason why melee is still important is because melee can still top up your shields, and you are still getting quite a few melee bonuses as you rank up your Vanguard anyway. But you could also consider using an adaptive war amp if you want to deal extra biotic powers. If you're a little bit disappointed about the fact that you can't utilize some of the skills in the Apex weapon tree, at the Apex training tree, where I mentioned that you lose 50% power damage, you can mitigate that somewhat by just equipping the adaptive war amp. There you go, that is my Vanguard's build as a result of the most recent patch. It's a lot of fun, you get to utilize far more powers this way, and you're not just relying on constantly charging and punching things. You utilize Nova and Shockwave a lot more because both of them can prime, and Shockwave is an additional detonator for you. All of the skills have a relatively short cooldown. Nova is your biggest cooldown at 12 seconds, so you're going to be utilizing Charge and Shockwave a fair amount, but I'm having a lot of fun playing this on gold. Your survivability is still very, very good, so it's viable on gold missions very, very easily. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Leave a comment if you decide to build your Vanguards any differently. But otherwise, I thank you for your time. I thank you for watching. If you want to check out any more of my videos, check the links out in the description. But otherwise, thank you for your time, and I will catch you again in the next video.